Huh, what up? What's what's up, everybody? This is High Radio, and it's a bit after 8 p.m. coming to you live from the city of Amsterdam. We're actually catching on some good laid back vibes. I think that soon I'll be able to announce that lockdown is finally going to be over. But I'm still delighted to be broadcasting here from my home and make sure that we still keep up with everything that is going on in our world. And as per every Sunday during this lockdown session, I have decided on 8 p.m. Amsterdam time to log in alongside my co host Donnie, who will be here in a bit to talk to you about what's going on in our world. And today we have a very special guest. We always have special guests. I promise to always bring aboard somebody that is, willing and able to help us change the way we do things as a community, how we can expand the movement. I see uniting Africans all over the world. So this is a special edition coming from home, Africa on Focus lockdown editions, as I would say. Make sure that you stream on your wall. That we are live as of now. You can join in the conversation because later on we have a very, very interesting, famous global special guest, as I would say, a globally known, globally recognized, who is going to talk to us about uniting young people for Africa and doing all of that. Before we get into it, I just want to say my name is Miss Abba. I'm your host. And like I said, I am hearing through, the rumor has it that very soon we're going to be back in the High Radio studios. We're just preparing a lot of things for you. All of my colleagues will be back. We have Kendi, with the East African Wave coming to you on every Saturday. On Friday, we have Gary coming to you with the Y Zone. And we have a few special new programs lined up. First, shout out to you for even tuning in. Samantha Ajwa, greetings to you for tuning in again. If I am to be correct, if I still remember, are you the lady from New York? Just confirm where you're listening from, because I always like to give a shout out to our listeners from wherever they are in the world. Anyway, today we have a special topic, and we are going to talk about how can we unite global Africans. And who is going to be part of that conversation will be Eddie Kadi, who is a comedian, presenter, actor, and global leader, a Congolese-British multi-talent who is known for being a connector between global Africans via music and entertainment and arts and sports. So these are the people who are responsible for bringing in very innovative ways of uniting young people for the continent. And that is why he's going to be part of the conversation. Shout out to Kobna Nyako, who is tuning in from Ghana. He is let's just say the head of the High Radio Ghana branch. Kobna, how are you doing? Let us know how you're doing at this moment. Have you eaten? You're probably full. You're sitting down and you're saying, you know what? Let me check out what's up with High Radio. Thanks so much for tuning in. And for those few of us who are just listening, make sure that you spread it on your timeline, because this is going to be a very good conversation, a very inspiring conversation, and hopefully or willingly, I would say, is going to have our young people especially to move and get to action and look into more possibilities as to how we can empower our continent Africa. Anyway, so this is Africa on Focus, and here on the show we come to you every week with the goal to share our success stories. Africans all over the world who come from different industry, who are making an impact, who have been able to start small and end up making their impact on a global scale. How they do it, what kind of challenges have they run into, and all of that. That is what we get to talk to them about. And during this lockdown sessions, or as this period that I've been streaming from my home, I've had the opportunity to talk to people that could really put that impact in perspective. And one of that is Dr. Sabine Fonderson, who is a Cameroonian doctor and the mastermind behind Hello Doc, which is an online platform that people can make use of and get medical advice. And it's super, super good because she's an African. She understands, that you have to be patient with us. We like to take our time. She understands the culture. So we had been talking to her about the myths, the facts, the rumors surrounding COVID-19, and she was able to, go into details with us. You can watch the recap on our Facebook page. And of course, also, we have the podcast episodes out. Then we went on to talk to other change makers. Myself and Donnie have been so much inspired. Last week, we talked to Buzi Sizani, who is there to ensure inclusion and that Black people are driven for new positions at companies like Uber and in those things. And I love how she was able to bring aboard her experience from South Africa as one that was born and raised during apartheid. So that is a good one. That one will be out soon also on our podcast. And also none other than Denta Amwateng MBE, who is a English or British-based Ghanaian, and who is changing the way we are uniting Africans all around the world. That one is also on our podcasting platforms. You can watch the recap on our Facebook streaming line, or the podcast is out on Spotify, iTunes, or where you can find podcasts. So make sure that you check that out. I am here alongside my co-host Donnie. I see that he's gotten ready because he had a lot to fix. I was watching him. Let's get into it and let's invite Donnie. How are you, Donnie?
Good evening. I am fine. How are you?
Good evening. I'm good. You look like you've had a good meal and you're ready for
I'm,
it.
I'm all right. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I am ready for it. I, I want to start off with
Got that. And a what?
oh, I think there's a delay, but remember the three artists or three musicians our dear brother gave us the other day, the other show.
When was that?
So when we did the show with the brother with the mental health movie,
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, that was why can't I get his name? Our filmmaker, our beloved filmmaker.
Yeah. Oh.
Did you check out his music?
Yeah. And actually, I already knew two of them. I had two of the artists. I had them in one of my playlists.
Right.
So I was familiar with the music. And then he had also one, the Gregory Isaacs, which is one that I didn't know, and that's a
Right.
really cool guy playing, doing reggae music, very inspirational.
What's his
So
name
yeah,
again?
Gregory Isaac was the
Oh yeah,
musician's name, so I checked him out. That was some cool
Joe
reggae
Wackel. Joe
music.
Wackel is the name. Our
Joe
guest.
Echo, yeah, Joe Echo, yeah. So because yeah, the three artists' name he gave was Jason Mraz, Gregory Isaacs, and Shodan Kant. I checked them all
Right.
out. I was already familiar with two of them, and
Yeah.
the last one I added also to one of the playlists. So that was good. I think we should ask our guests those kind of questions
That's
more
a good
often, like
idea.
to
That's a good
see,
idea.
yeah, to see what yeah, how they,
I think
But yeah,
that's an absolute good idea. Yeah. So you enjoyed all three of them,
yeah, I did.
right? Right. That's
I'm
good. That
wondering what Miss Denta listens to.
yeah, you know what? We're just gonna have that, part of our routine that we're gonna be like, what's on your playlist? Because that's
Yeah,
also interesting, and it helps like us explore the world of music, you
yeah.
know, and it because in general I always preferred underground music over the
hmm
real popular thing, and I
Than
realized
commercial
that
mainstream. Yeah.
exactly. But I realized that I don't have, the time on my hand like I used to, where you get into I used to visit particular blogs, British urban blogs and stuff that would like promote upcoming artists and things like that.
hmm
But
Yeah.
these days, like I'm really dependent on playlists to bring me there, you know?
Right. And
So
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
And I'm dependent on just recommendations. Hey, what are you listening to? All right,
yeah,
let me check that out. And then I'm also yeah, yeah. But there's so
exactly.
much good music out there,
Yeah,
and that's the thing, and it's just out there. But exactly, mainstream commercial is just like one way of
it
people
is.
doing things, and one way of it's the same type of music.
Yeah,
So it's refreshing to keep exploring some more. One of my
exactly.
goals for this year was because I mean last year I checked. Spotify always gives you at the end of the year, they give you like a recap of your year,
Yeah,
how many artists you've listened to,
yeah,
the amount of time you spent listening to music. So I went through
yeah,
the list and it was like, I'm not sure, but it had a lot of new artists on it. Like you've listened to this many artists. I was
yeah.
like, my goal for 2020 is to have double the amount of different artists I've listened to,
Hmm.
and I want to see a lot more African musicians in there as well.
Right.
So yeah, that's one of my goals.
Yeah, I think that's not a bad idea at all. By the way, speaking of not upcoming, but just say underground artists,
hmm
I always like music of artists that kind of do artistic weird stuff. I don't know why, but it's just interesting. So there is there is one. Oh, in the meantime, shout out to Eben who even made this talk that we're gonna have possible. Eben is saying he's listening to H Town, Jodeci, Terry Garman. That is like that old.
Jodeci.
That is that classic 90s. Thank you for suggesting that, Evan. I'll be definitely catching up on my playlist with that. So, one artist that I would like recommend to anybody that likes, that
hmm
type of good hip hop, the content and things. That was one, a lady who was like into social media recommended because that was an artist that was really considered as underground, but uses kind of he has created this movement, and he goes by the name of Toby Ingwe. Do you know him?
Toby Ingrid. Have you played a song on the show before?
I haven't. You know what? Because
Okay.
Facebook has this thing that they will follow you. Like any registered music, they will come and silent that bit of the
Mm,
show and stuff like that. So, as far as on Facebook, we don't play it, but I'm gonna share it with you. And that one is super dope. He's a rapper, and
uh,
he teams up with like a few singers, his crew, and he kind of
Toby Ingrid.
has a mission behind his music. Making Purpose Popular.
Doesn't he has a show on NPR, um
Oh,
desk
Tiny Desk.
concert?
He he he
Tiny Desk. I think he does.
he did appear
Someone has.
on Tiny Desk.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah. Someone has. It's either
yeah.
you or someone has recommended him before. Yeah. Okay, totally.
Right,
Right.
right. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And
Okay. Good.
I love it. He adds
Hmm.
sense of humor. He adds a movement to it. He's with this Making Purpose Popular movement. He touches on family, and his own wife is part of his team, that type of thing. And it's a really creative way of making music. So yeah, you need to check
Nice.
that out. Definitely, definitely.
I
Um,
will.
so that's a good recommendation for any of you out there listening to any particularly underground, like the undiscovered music or anything. Please feel free to share in our timeline so that we can
Hmm.
could listen up, and hopefully next week we can review on the records that we learned. And for those of you
Hmm.
who tuned in, thanks so much for tuning in. Kristalina, presenter extraordinaire, Mensa Gary, my colleague at Thai Radio. Feel free to share the news on the timeline. In just a few minutes from now, we're going to have a talk about uniting young Africans. And part of the conversation will be none other than Eddie Kadi, who is known all over the world for not just being a comedian, but a comedian with a mission to unite in and for Africa and do so much more. And how he does it and what we have to look forward to, we are going to talk to him about that in a bit. Make sure that you spread the word also on your Twitter timelines, Facebook, all that is around. Just do your best to support us. And any news, Donnie? Did you catch into anything interesting? How has the lockdown been treating you thus far?
Um. Not bad. Not bad. Let's see. Any news that kind of like sprung out? Not necessarily, because there are two things happening still, or let's say main focus. Let's say
Yeah.
elections are still ongoing, or when it comes to politics, is still moving forward.
Oh
And
yeah.
even this whole lockdown, politics has a really strong, let's say, tie and effect with this whole coronavirus.
Right.
So American politics, they've been scheduled to have an elections in October, or yeah, October, I believe, this year. So their
Right.
campaign is pretty much still looking. Are they going to postpone it, or are they going to keep it
Yeah.
going? Here in the Netherlands, I think this Monday there will also be elections. I think that's per city, so just the
Hmm.
local verkiezingen elections.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's still ongoing, and it's just interesting to see if how, let's say, politicians are trying to make use of this coronavirus within their campaign.
They just want to flip it
Um,
and make sure they
they,
win.
yeah, I mean, what Nana Akufo-Addo does as the same, because people are saying the way he's handling this coronavirus thing is, is really is benefiting his, his chances of re-elections.
Right.
Meanwhile, I've also seen other comments or other perspective where they say there is so much more going on other
Hmm.
than the coronavirus that
Right.
he's not doing well, or that should be done if he wants to secure a
Right.
re-election. And
Yeah.
that's the good thing out there. So there are still people looking at the different sides and not only paying attention to this coronavirus.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's pretty much what I've been
That's been your
busy with.
your that's
Yeah,
been keeping all
just
of your
just
attention.
yeah, just to look. Hey, are people still looking over their shoulders? Are they still looking ahead? Are they still,
Yeah.
you know, and not being distracted by coronavirus? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
How
definitely
was your week?
Mine has I'm always busy, Donnie. I'm always doing I'm
Yeah,
always up
you
to
are.
something. I'm always figuring out how can I, make whatever I
Earn
do like
money.
stand, and even for the radio, or is it music or business, I'm always thinking of doing something. So it's like it's rather when can I assure that I'm not busy? Like I need to take a day off. I'm really
You need
realizing
to take a day off.
I do. And your suggestion, by the way, has to wait because flights will not be possible up until when is that? Like a month from now?
Yo, that breaks my heart. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's not doable yet. And knowing myself, like even if we are allowed to fly today, right? I'll just wait for 3 months because I don't
Hmm.
trust this new measures or something that they've taken, and things like I'm like, no, health first. Health first. That is the bottom line of everything. That is
Oh, it's
really
gonna
what
be
it
so
is.
interesting.
It is definitely. In the meantime, for those of you who just tuned in, Dennis the Almeida, thank you for tuning in from wherever you are. Crystalina, so cool that you just tuned in with the Africa on Focus. And this is actually the lockdown session because even at the studio, we're on lockdown. And hopefully by, let's say, our first show, my first show on the 7th of June, we'll be back in the studio receiving our guests and everything. Of course, we will make sure that we will have our measures taken, the place on the full hygiene and whatever.
Yeah.
I saw some shows where they were hosting with masks. I don't think that's necessary, but hey, you have to do what you got to do. And
Wow.
we are here again on lockdown specials, where every week I invite a special guest to come on board and to talk about sharing our success stories, because that is key within anything. And in a few minutes, I'm going to announce our special guest who will be here on the show. We're going to talk to him about him being a global influencer for Africa. And one thing that I also like, this one thing that myself and Donnie always touch on, is the fact that it's probably the first time where Pan Africanism is so popular on it in its way among young people, and we want to really see this changing into actual change, durable change, development, and so forth. So, without further
Right.
ado, let me make sure that I invite my special guest here, and I'm really honored to talk to him. Shout out to Eben for making that happen. He is a comedy icon and transcultural and global African who is known for flipping his inspirational story as a British Congolese to the funniest. A true self starter because he started out hosting stand up comedy shows during his university days and flipping it into his career as to date. He has graced stages all over the world, both on the African continent and outside, fully entertaining the world. And can we Africans even be more proud? With his influence, he is supporting Pan-African movement for young people and entertainers alike, such as Pan-Afro Link. And now, with the hashtag In for Africa, he's on an important mission to unite us Africans for the care of our people on the continent. What it's all about, well, we're going to find out with our special guest, and that is Eddie Kadi. Hello.
Hello. Hello.
Hello, hello, hello,
Hello,
hello.
guys.
How are
Can you
you
see
doing?
me clearly? Am I good?
Yes, absolutely. You have
Okay,
your
great.
your gadget on the perfect position.
Listen,
Absolutely.
yeah, these days we've got the right gadgets. We have to get the right lighting. Life has changed. You can't just
Exactly.
communicate.
It,
You have everything has to be a TV production.
I
It
know,
does.
right? It's so serious. Like even myself, I have this round lightning here in my corner.
Yeah, yeah.
You
I
know,
see.
it's
It's a big. That's why you're glowing. It's important. It's
I know,
important.
I know. That's what is needed. Well, thank you so much, Eddie, for making some time to even tune in with us.
My
And
pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
happy belated birthday.
Thank you very much. I'm still enjoying my birthday for the whole month. I think this time
All the
round, I'm
time.
not counting the age. I will be the same age. We'll wait till next year. This
Right.
year, yeah, it doesn't make sense. So
It
it has
doesn't.
It
frozen.
doesn't make sense.
We are
It
frozen, so
doesn't.
yeah, it doesn't. So we just thank God for the breath of life, but we're not adding the year. This is next year will be 2020.
Exactly right. It paused our lives, so you know what? We're just gonna pause that age gap it brought
Exactly,
this year. That's the spirit.
exactly.
And how has lockdown been treating you? I just want to know, like, is it major?
Um, you know what? It's more like how have I been treating lockdown? Because
Right.
if you let lockdown treat you, then man, you've lost. You lost before the
Literally.
battle even begins, right? So you got to treat the lockdown. And I think the first 2 weeks, lockdown definitely treated me, and it treated me. It treated me like that boy he hates from school. It treated me like his ex. Treating me like former employer, all the bad things, right? And then I had all the excuses to feel down and complain about the fact that there's as a performer I don't get to get on the plane and travel across the continent around the world and all that stuff. Then I actually realized that maybe for COVID, for some of us, maybe it's here to save me. Maybe it's here to allow me to slow down and think about the things I wouldn't normally think about and do the things I wouldn't normally get a chance to. And that's when I stopped complaining. I realized I was in a really privileged position and started, I started jogging. So I started getting more and more fit because I find myself panting halfway through any show.
Oh
African
no.
dances. When you're hosting a show with African dances, you're risking your life. So I started to exercise a lot more, but then I started thinking about the people back home and found myself as part of an organization 5 weeks later that's really trying to, move mountains, really.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. And that's a perfect example of treating the lockdown instead of letting it
Oh, yeah.
treat. Yeah, I
Yeah.
love that. Flipping
Make a
the
full
whole
use
script.
of it.
Absolutely. So before we can get things started, because I announce you, I know you, like I'm excited about you as being with us here. But on top of
Appreciate it.
everything, I would really like to know, like, if any person who hasn't heard of Eddie Kadi
Yeah.
before, how would you best describe who is Eddie?
Who is Eddie? That's a good question. So I call myself an entertainment merchant because I don't just do one thing in entertainment. I'm a host. I'm a stand-up comedian,
Yeah.
as well as a event curator and stuff. But I'm number one. I'm a proud African, a proud Congolese. I was born in the DRC, moved to the UK at the age of 8, 9. Couldn't speak a word of English. Went through the normal. When you're young, you can acquire languages quite quickly. So with English, I've grown up in this country most of my life, and of course, graduated from Kingston University in the early 2000s, and then stand-up just took over. And from then on, it's been at the forefront of shaping the person I am. But it's really the vehicle to where I'm trying to be, which is
Yeah.
just kind of be one of the very many voices that believes that Africa needs to get its fair share. And I think most of us have been given the gift of life, but our purpose is what we apply that gift to. So for me right now, as much as I'm proud of my stand-up background and performing in all around the world and presenting some major shows around the world and aligning myself with a lot of top brands, what I'm more proud of is the fact that I'm able to use that as a vehicle to actually break down stereotypes of what people deem Africa to be.
Yeah. Yeah. And was this, because one thing I'm curious to know, were you always on a mission to do this for Africa? Because I know a lot of entertainers that we have on board, they had their period of being focused on the States, especially as it relates to entertainment, media, this wave of going back to Africa is quite new, let's say 10 plus years strong. How did this evolve, or did it evolve, or did you just get it right from the get-go?
Well, for me, going back to the continent, it goes back to, we're looking at about 2006 was the first time I went back to the continent. It was actually my work that took me back. So since leaving Congo in 1992, it was actually 2006 that I went back. And of course, after that, I started going more regularly. But it was actually Nigeria, the first place I went back. And then I didn't go to Congo till 2010, then Ghana and so forth. So for me, the reason why I'm breaking that down to you, because it was my job, it was my performance, it was my appearance, how I came across, that took me back to the continent. Someone that spotted me on stage and they believed I was Nigerian, right? Because of the storytelling And I think, you know, if you grow up in the UK, the two prominent countries that represent Africa in this country is the majority is Ghana and Nigeria. So during those times when you're really, you know, putting on the African accent, the Nigerian accent was the one that you really put in front for everybody to understand that you're African. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So it was that, and then you kind of just started to diversify, because I'm a francophone. You know, with the Congolese accent, is not so, you know, it's not so forthcoming and stuff.
Right.
So for me, for a very long time, from even when I landed in the UK, I just didn't see anything wrong with talking about my country or speaking in my language or eating the food that I did. And I didn't see it. I was very oblivious to what was holding everybody back. So that was quickly applied to the things that I will go on and do in my career. You know, like from 2002, my university, Kingston, we put together a showcase, and I hosted the entire showcase, putting on my friend's Nigerian uncle's accent. That was just the thing. And people loved it so much. It continued. I loved dancing to Congolese music. For those that know about Congolese music, you know, and just in general, it played a big part to the African entertainment and African music prior to this new sort of birth of the new Afrobeats generation, right? So we're talking about Koffi Olomide, Awilo Longomba, Kandabongo, my Papa Wemba. These are big names. You know, Wera Son and everybody. So this was a part of me. I felt that uniqueness. This is what I had to offer to the world. Like for me, it was like I could dance, I could speak my language, I had certain mannerisms, certain stories from back home. So I think subconsciously I was never afraid. I didn't see any reason, but then I needed to understand my gift and then use that to now find my purpose. So my purpose became the conscious part, that okay, this is naturally me, but what does it all mean? Actually, this is what it means. It means being able to bridge the gap between the diasporans and those back home. So it just became a natural thing. It's just natural.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. And I because one thing, a lot of our listeners are, you know, young Africans, and they travel and they're really trying to fit in, you know, within whatever that they're doing. And for you to be able to discover, or let's just say be comfortable at one place and identify that as the place where you should grow continuously. That is really what makes it interesting. And it has, look at you, you're on a career, making your money, flying all over the world, pre-COVID-19.
Oh man, yeah, God is good.
Yeah, absolutely. Donnie, I remember because myself and Donnie were like going through the questions, and one thing that Donnie discovered, or one thing that we find fascinating, because I'll just explain things here. The diaspora in London is quite resemblant to the diaspora in the Netherlands. You know, it just has a few different Caribbean countries that are the major the major groups. So what happens is there is some type of like, I don't know, division between the Francophone and Anglophone, you know, so even though we connect together as Africans, you do find, okay, Congolese, and maybe together with Angolans, you know, in Rotterdam, for instance. And then you'll find the Ghanaians with the Nigerians in Amsterdam, predominantly, maybe even connecting more to a group of, we call them Surinamese, but on your end, it's British Guyana, you know. And you seem to like tear down any type of barrier as we know it from our world. How were you able to do that? Like,
oh, that is such a beautiful question. I'm so glad you asked that, because I don't see barriers, because we didn't put these borders that you know that we now see as the map of Africa, right? And this was all based on colonialism. This is just a fact. So if we really look at things that we're talking about, the Francophones and Anglophones, the Anglophones and a lot of those countries, they have a different mannerism. The British have a different mannerism to the French. Yeah, the Portuguese have a different mannerism to the Spanish. You know, the Dutch have a different mannerism. So like, when you now look how they've all applied themselves, like the Dutch have applied themselves to South Africa, or the French have applied themselves to Ivory Coast or Congo, the British have applied themselves to Kenya, to Nigeria and Ghana, you can see the difference. Different mannerism, different vision, different way of life, different types of music, you know, like, so there's so many things that differs, that a lot of things that we talk about are lost in translation. So we actually start to believe that we don't understand each other. But there's one thing you can never take away from people, that's the DNA, like their core. And the core of all of us literally is the spirit that we have, the spirit of unity. Like we all have family units. We all believe in respecting our elders. You know, we all believe in doing it for each other. We all believe in dancing to the beat. Do you understand? And these are the things, no matter wherever you landed in France, or you landed in Suriname, or you landed in Barbados, we dance to the beat. You can give me a Caribbean beat right now, I will hit it straight. You can give a Caribbean and African beat, they will, because it's in us, right? So I've always realized that. So there were certain, those fundamentals, those are the things I go for. I go for teaching one another, because my comedy comes from breaking our stereotype, teaching people and letting them know that we are the same. You understand? You guys say plantain, we say plantain. You know, that's what the Caribbeans will say. But it's still the same thing. The way you have your oxtail, we have it the same. Maybe some more salt or less salt, maybe a different type of sauce, but it's the same thing. So I've never seen those barriers, and I really have over the years, because I've grown up with a lot of Caribbeans. I actually have a couple of Surinamese friends as well from the Netherlands, you know, and I've grown up with Ghanaians and Nigerians and Congolese people, and I've come to realize we are all the same siblings. Just you know, we're literally the same siblings from the same mother, but we've all gone around the world, and those places have now shaped the people that we are. You know, so once you decide not to look at that, believe me, the rest is easy. Like you'll start to apply yourself in a way that becomes almost fearless, almost very oblivious to the divide, and people catch on to that. That's what brings the love and the unity, for sure. Like, I believe in that wholeheartedly.
I agree. I believe that, you know, once you focus on what connects us and you're able to highlight it in so many different ways, you could then prove a point, especially to us Africans, since we're considered as divided throughout all of these years.
We shouldn't believe that. I don't think we should believe when people use, because the more people say things, the more we start to believe it. We have to start creating a new narrative. For example, when we talk about aid, giving aid back to Africa, if you look over the years, the notion of aid has been used to continue the propaganda of Africa is at the bottom of the pile, Africa is poor, Africa is useless, without the rest of the world, Africa cannot function. But the truth is, without Africa, the rest of the world cannot function. And a lot of people talk about, you know, just the mineral aspects of things, or the crop that we grow, like the brains. When we start breaking down the people who are really running the world with their brains, the people that they low-key steal and put in the laboratories, these are Africa. Just yesterday, a Congolese lady like showed innovation on another level.
The fashion runway thing, right?
Come on. Yeah. Now, if we didn't have, this is the thing, if we didn't have social media, she would have gone to an office, showed it to some guy who will now take it on and then show the rest of us, and now we'll think, oh man, this is the guy. But that's not the case. Now we've got the power of social media. She didn't have to wait for anybody. She did it herself, straight to the consumer, straight to her brothers and sisters who are now back to said, look at one of our own. Nobody can come and tell us now that this idea came from anybody else. That's an example of the people that we are. And we need to start believing that. We need to start applying that and start actually connecting. Like you will know about A, I know about B. My brother, you will know about C. We connect our hands together. Man, we've got the alphabet. What are we waiting for? What are we really waiting for?
All right, then I'll ask a question.
Yes, sir.
Being that, let's say, technology has been, well, if not arguably the only advancement of life itself, and it has provided us with these options, or it has broken down certain barriers that were used against us in the past. Do you think, or do you hope that now we literally can and have, and there's nothing going to hold us down into this, you know, revolutionizing our idea and becoming or making Africa and Africans become what they should be? If that's the case, if that's what you believe, then the question will be, what is it that you think is holding us back now?
I think I take off the word hope. I definitely believe. I know. I don't just think I know, because if we talk about hope, we're leaving it in someone else's hand, and we ain't got time for that. And like the truth of the matter is, we have always been in that position, bro. Like if you think about our forefathers in the Martin Luther Kings and the Marcus Garveys and the Patrice Lumumbas and the Kwame Nkrumahs, you know, the Sankaras of this world, All these people didn't have the technology that we have now, but we talk about them now. I think one of what's holding us back is the idea that every action we submit right now, we must see the results straight away. That's a very selfish thinking. We need to plan ahead. The reason why other people, other races are enjoying the power that they have right now is because their forefathers, their great-great-great-grandparents actually said, I'm willing to die, but I know that I've done enough for my children, then my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren to then enjoy the work that I put in. We have to accept our role as just another building block. We can't lie to ourselves and say we're the entire building. Right. We have to actually plan for our children's children. If we do that, we will always know that everything that we're doing is enough. So technology is the equipment that we've been given to put our brick up. Our children and their children, the level that they're going to reach when we're talking about artificial intelligence, that will be their tool. But if we don't do our part and make use of technology now to move the conversation further, to move the belief further, then the next people will crumble down again. And I think that's our major issue. That's what's holding us back. We have to start to understand that what we are doing is enough. It has always been enough. We can look back and know where we're coming from with some of the people that have already set the platform for us. We have to start building. We cannot think that, oh, there's a hope, because it's the power is in our hands. We've done it before. Why can't we do it again?
But it's hard still. It's hard to see that there has been let's say any progress since like for instance for Ghana since we attained independence. Honestly, it was this week that I was talking to my father, and he was saying that now actually ministers or Ghanaian officials have been looking back at Dr. Kwame Nkrumah's plan that he had made for buildings and for monuments or for the infrastructure in Ghana to be built. Now they're actually looking back at it and trying to rebuild that. So meaning like since he was president till now, they have been doing other things, and which sounds like they've been wasting time in a sense, right?
You know what? I wish I was in that conversation with you and your dad, man, because I want to predict something. No, I want to predict something in that conversation. Did he at some point say to you then, your generation are the ones that really need to take it forward? Was that mentioned? I told you in that conversation that you guys are in a position to do so much more than we did.
Yeah, but every generation is though. So because he also did say that because I asked him and he was telling me that if I had your age right now, the things I would be doing. And so I looked at him and I said, okay, then what were you doing when you were at my age? And he was like, yeah, I already had 3 kids by then and all these things. and still he did sufficient. Why? Because he has given me the chance. He has put me in a position where I can uplift my offsprings. So that for me was sufficient. But it was still beautiful to see that, hey, you are in this position now, so you can definitely do much more. That is what he was pointing out, though. So which I was I
agree with that. I agree with that. Like, talking about how the ministers, and this happens in a lot of countries, they're now regretting the work that some of these people who are way ahead of their time. That's because we get provided with those leaders. We get provided with people who are actually forward thinking.
Right.
But now we're in a position where we couldn't have had this dialogue. Our parents couldn't have had this dialogue back in the day. They couldn't have, because they just didn't have the technology, like you're saying. That wasn't their tool. But the tool that was provided back then, those people that made use of it are the people we speak about today. That goes to show the impact that they had. Let's not forget that these people weren't in vain. They did their part, because the conversation that we have now, we're able to carry it forth around the world. Like as a Congolese speaking to a Ghanaian, and we're all diasporans, that is advancement, because we are in a position where we've come to a world where we can acquire education, we can see the world from a different point of view, take those skill sets and take it back home and apply. I'm not saying everybody should go back to Africa. I'm never in the notion that not everybody's built to just pack up and leave. You can do the work for the continent where you are. But for those who are able to, instead of going back home and saying, oh, look at the potholes. Oh, man, the service is too slow. A, B, or C. Actually look at it as your part to actually fulfill. So the skill that you've attained has allowed you to be able to even identify these issues, where some people back home, they see it as normal. So for us, we're now in a position as diasporas to really acquire our skill set. Our children, remember for us, it was a lot harder to think going back to Africa. As you know, as you guys just mentioned, that it's only been 10 years, 10 to 12 years. Our children, for them, it should be normal now. When I went to Ghana, I went to Nigeria, I'm in Congo, I'm in Uganda, I'm seeing 10, 15-year-olds, teenagers now coming back regularly. You know, it's a normal thing to them. So now, for you to tell them to do things back home, you don't have to convince them. For our generation, we had to get convinced. Why am I going back to Africa? For their generation, it's a normal thing. When they now have children, a lot of the children may just be, they might be born in Africa, but have the access to the free world. That's where we're going. That's where my actual belief is, that we are progressing and moving forward, and we're taking control of all of our achievements. Nobody can lie to us anymore to say that this was done by this person, this was done by the other person. We can see it for ourselves, and that empowers us to be able to encourage ourselves to keep doing more. We have more leaders now than we've ever had in the history of our people right now. Like 3 of them are talking right now. 3 of them have got dialogue right now. For you to be able to reach out to me and speak to the people following right now, you're a leader. And that's the power that we have. Charity begins at home. If we all do our parts, believe me, bro, the next generation will enjoy the fruits of our labor.
Yeah. I would definitely say that's a good, it's optimism. And for me, it lifts my spirit. Like for me, I know there are a bit of critical thinkers, especially within this Pan-African group of people that we are in. But I do believe that this type of, even this time that we're in, to independently start media channels and to start giving out information. The other day, for instance, and I'm just giving just a small example, was a lady, half Ghanaian, half Dutch. She and her family decided to return to Ghana and work. And on her YouTube channel, she gives all of the information that people, you know, would look for and couldn't find. So everything, finding a school, getting income, such and such. How is it, you know, as it relates to this world that we're in? How is it adapting and everything? I just find this type of self-starting attitude really productive, as it changes the image. It promotes, you know, tourism. It attracts, you know, what's it called? Ghana and Lagos for a year of return post COVID-19. You know what I mean? So I really do see it as something positive. And even though Black people have tried so many times, I do feel that it is an opportunity for a change, which is like happening right in front of our eyes.
Oh, for sure. Like, don't get me wrong. I definitely understand there's obstacles, and we have a certain pattern as a people that we do have to break down. I understand that. I understand that there's also difficulties. There's a question of unity, which then creates everyone kind of having their own agenda. I get that. But I also believe that we all have different roles. Some people have the role to get the army up. Just get up. Like, you know, when you're all running together on a marathon and some people start dropping off, you're kind of like, come on, let's go. That positive thinking goes a long way, because we have to look at what will keep us going as well. There are things to do on both sides, you know, to break down some of the negativities that we have, but at the same time to also uphold the strengths that we have. Let's really start highlighting our strengths. Like, that is just the reality. Like, I'm gonna you know, be a bit controversial here, but I have to, for the sake of giving an example, right? One of my friends, a close friend of mine, you know, all his girlfriends and his ex-partners and future partners and current partners have all been white, which is not a problem, right? It's not a problem at all.
Yeah.
I asked him, I remember asking him, I said, you know, like, it's between friends. I said, you love your European women. You love them. You know, like, what is it about them that you love so much? Right. His response was, I find it difficult dealing with our sisters. Yeah. And I said, that's not what I asked you. I asked you to tell me the good things that you see in the people you are with. Don't use that as a reason to now downgrade the people you're not with. Because just because the sisters are not good, give me the qualities. And the point I mean by that is that we need to focus on the things that drives us forward. Like, if I'm here talking about moving forward, I'm not going to start talking about the negative reasons why. I'm going to focus on the positive reasons why it's going to move forward. If you had said to me, I like this Amy, Stephanie, and Ashley because Becky. Of A, B, C, and Becky because of the good hair, whatever. Okay, I give you that. But you didn't even give me one answer to do with the people that you seem to focus on. You're still focusing on the people that you seem to say. Does that make sense? So for me, it's like, if we're going to talk about empowerment, let's really focus on empowerment. And I want to reiterate, you can be with whoever you want to be. It's a free world. It's a beautiful thing, you know. But the fact of the matter is, we should always focus on the good reasons why we're moving forward. And the negative reasons, we can start using that to uplift, using the good reason to uplift the negative reasons. That's my core belief. And for me, so far, I've seen changes, the people around me. I've seen changes in my career, in applying myself. When people were talking about Africa is not cool, too much, you're too African. I was told this, you talk about African issues too much in your comedy. Why don't you expand? I'm like, well, nobody else is. And that's open door for me. I've gone to all the major, stages around the world. I've gone into some doors. Even my father, who didn't really believe in me doing comedy, he wanted the usual, right? Doctor, lawyer, accountant. Even him, he ended up at the Prime Minister's, number 10 Downing Street, and he suddenly said, "Oh, Eddie, I'm eating crisps at the Prime Minister's office. Comedy is good." But he didn't realize it was my style of comedy, not just any comedy. It was Africa that kicked the doors down. You know, so man.
It took a bit of convincing power, but he came around.
Oh no, my dad got there. My dad got there. Oh yeah, he was one of those guys. I would say in one of my stand-up material that my dad was not convinced to do my show until my mom forced him to come, and he sat there throughout the whole show. He did not laugh once. He was just nodding throughout the whole show. When people were laughing, my dad was nodding. I'm telling you, bro. When the show was done, I went to my dad and said, "Dad, did you not enjoy the show?" And you know, this stubborn African man, he was saying he was eating peanuts. I said, "That was fantastic. You are talented. You are so talented." And I said, "Dad, but the whole point of comedy is to laugh." He said, "Hey, no. I couldn't laugh. Your jokes were funny, but I was too busy counting the money. £10, £10. There was 200 people in the building. Times 10, £2,000. Comedy is good. This is great. When is our next show?" He became my accountant, my tour manager. That's all that convinced him when he saw the money.
Wow. Did he really become your accountant and tour manager?
Oh, no. Listen. Every African parent is an accountant.
All right.
You know exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah. Even when he say I'll be promoted, they'll be like, "Oh, is that good pay?" That's the first question.
Right. Well, in the meantime, for those of you who just tuned in, we are having a good conversation with Eddie Kadi, talking to us about uniting young Africans, global Africans all over the world. I just want to give a few shout outs, and before we take on the last few minutes, feel free to drop a question, comment, or how you want this conversation to go. I'm so interested in all of the listeners. Richard, thank you so much for tuning in. And Ruth Osei, also thank you for tuning in. AG Green, I love it because that is a listener who just shared a comment. Let me check out what AG Green has been saying. She said, "We can achieve all this if we stop old people from ruling us. Looking around Africa, almost all our leaders are above 60 years. Do you think that's a thing as well? That's an issue as well, Eddie?
Generation. This is what I was saying earlier. When we talk about our generation, we are like, there's more leaders now than there was back in the days. We are in the position to, because you can't keep applying the same ideas and assume that you're going to connect with the generation that's supposed to take us forward. It makes no sense. At some stage, you've got to really pass on the baton and let the people who understand how the world is currently going to take it on and pass it on in time. Because if you think about it, right, if you've been holding this bread for 10 years, 15, 20, 35, and you're meant to pass it on to your child, by the time you are 50, you won't even be able, the bread is old.
Exactly.
The bread is molding. Your hand is even shaking. You may even drop it. So what are you passing on? You might even pass on just a piece of the bread, and now you failed the mission. If you pass it on whilst you're energetic and enthusiastic, that's going to happen. But, we have an idea of a crabs in a barrel situation where once we get into power, our people are afraid to let go of power. It's almost like there's this notion where actually if I let go of power, I'm back in the bottom. But actually, the real show of power is be able to create new leaders. That's the real show of power. It takes cuts, and I think to an extent, our generation is almost also afraid to take power. We're not talking about standing up to people and creating crazy protests. We're talking about actually speaking on these subjects, really starting to dialogue, really starting to understand each other as a continent. And Africa is not a country. It's to understand the 54 faces that we possess on our continent, and then start to apply ourselves. So for me, of course, like the older people are, the harder it's going to be for you to pass on to the next generation. So I do agree with that comment.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
which also has to do with the fact that you were saying it we have to accept that we are part of the building and not the building itself.
100%.
So leaders in in position of power, what has been making them so reluctant or hesitant to share their power is the fact that they believe that they are
Yeah,
the
the building.
entire
The entire
building,
building.
meaning
My
so
bro.
yes, but
High
it's
five to you.
because also it's because the institutions that we have running is not, let's say, strong enough, which can be, let's say, what operated I've forgotten the word, but operated independently. Like for instance,
Yeah.
when people say our leaders are too old, that is not the that's not a problem. Why? The United States of America, their elections this year, I think the youngest president or the youngest candidate is, I think, 60 years old or 55. So they also have lots of old candidates for let's say in the role of power. However,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
institutions that they are running are independent
Yeah.
enough or are big enough to
Yeah.
share the power and also to have positive or impact on whatever it is that they're trying to build. So yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's two things. Not the leaders.
It's
The leaders are facing a different thing. Yeah.
it's definitely the structure. I mean, for me, like you said, the institution. When and that's the thing. When I'm talking about literally, you're too old to even pass on the bread. I literally mean it in the elements of if someone started being a president at 25, you can't be still the president at 50. Do you know what I mean? Some people have been born in the country, graduated, got married, had children, and it's the same president. Some of them have done all that, and they've only seen two presidents that have circulated. The one that was president when they were born, and then that same president now has taken maybe a 20-year gap and has come back as president when they've reached the marital status. So it is that institution. It's also understanding social economic power as a continent, because the way the world plays it, globally, is that if we actually, as a community, understand that we've got to keep the money in our community, we've got to start building for us.
Yeah.
And that really is a diaspora conversation. People will have no choice but to play. But they, the other communities, they may be a resistance because they're not used to Africa being independent of their own thoughts and their own process and their own activation. But eventually, if we stick at it, like, they will have no choice but to deal with us on a certain level. And that once again becomes about, for some of us, taking a risk, bringing things back home, start to build and not waiting for other people. Start to look at I said at the beginning of the conversation in terms of aid. We have to change the narrative of how aid is done in Africa, which is why I'm a part of this initiative in for Africa, because the idea is to actually have Africans at the forefront of giving relief for Africa. So therefore, people don't start showing Africa to be a place that's just poor, but actually it's a place that is full of progress. It's full of people who are on ground, entrepreneurs, businessmen, and some of the greatest minds on this earth. So once we start showing that and start to empower and start to hold a lot of people accountable that are at the forefront financially and economically, we will start to actually progress. Once again, maybe for our parents, they've done their part. Maybe even for us, we're coming towards the end of our sort of role. But we've got to start teaching our children. I really believe that, like, our generation is so important. When we start teaching our children this, we can make a massive difference. And I'm not saying every single child will take that on board or every single person will teach that, because everybody's got different ways of thinking. But as a people, charity begins at home, right? So if we start teaching our children the notion of, you don't just have to be a politician to change the world, actually. You don't just have to be a doctor to change the world. Like, you can be a person who has attained a certain skill set, your gift, and use your purpose. And your purpose is what you apply your gift to. These are the lessons that we need to teach our children, to be proud of understanding that our community is enough. So the money stays more than once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. That's where we need to be. That's my opinion.
Absolutely. I agree with that so much. And I know we've taken some of your time, but I don't want you to leave without just highlighting In for Africa just a bit more and what it is, how people can join in, that because that's really what I would like to have going.
So Info Africa is an organization that was set up to deal with the challenges, the many challenges that the continent is facing during this pandemic. So what I mean by that is a lot of people around the world have been forgotten, right? We have I've checked on a lot of the mainstream media. We're not talking about how people back home, the forgotten people, even people in the rural areas, were dealing with the lockdown. Those people who literally live from day to day. Those people who couldn't just afford to go in a lockdown where the government is not backing them. There were people who didn't even get access to the information that we have on social media, TVs, and radio. And a lot of them didn't even have access to lighting, access to water. They hardly get access to food and water on a daily basis, let alone when the lockdown has happened. And we've realized that actually, for us who are in this privileged position, we need to now start connecting and united to become the voice for the voiceless. So Info Africa was an idea that came by connecting influencers from around the world globally who were in for Africa, who were in to be the voice for the voiceless. And the idea was to achieve two things: to break down the issue of misinformation or fake news. A lot of people were passing on information on their WhatsApps, and people were, all over social media that were not actually real health-wise as well. So people didn't actually know how to deal with this lockdown in terms of social distancing, washing your hands, what coronavirus really was, and how we can actually, avoid it, and at the same time, the second thing was to also, we were watching that organization were already doing things on ground. Celebrities, normal people, civilians were doing things on ground for their communities, whether it was fundraising, whether it was helping the elderly, providing food. So we thought, let us also do our part to fundraise and help these organizations through major organizations that help to impact the continent. So this was being done by this campaign over social media, but eventually with the amount of influencers that we got together, we were doing an entertainment festival, which is called the Info Africa Festival on the 6th of June. We're actually launching a campaign tomorrow on Africa Day. We have the African Union, the African Center for Disease Control, the African CDC, and of course also working with the World Health Organization on the messaging aspect of staying healthy and keeping a social distancing that the world is now aware of. So the actual campaign for now is we're doing panel conversation about how diasporans can come together in unifying and talking about, because look, guys, every day the conversation on COVID is changing as people are finding out more and more about what's happening. So we're now talking about how the Francophones, the Anglophones, the Portuguese and the Spanish guys across the continent, the Swahilis, can all come together in actually addressing the different colors that we have as a continent, the different cultures, and how we can now unite in order to pass on these messages to our people. Because so many people on ground do not have access to this message. So throughout the week on the 25th till the 5th of June, we're doing different conversations on live, pre-recorded panel conversations. Of course, also started to talk about the idea of donations and building it up until we actually confirm all the organizations that we're working with. One of them being the African Union Pact organization that actually deals with helping relief on ground across the continent, and the African CDC that actually targets various regions across the continent to know where money is needed and at what point, right? So then on the 6th of June, will be the actual festival. And during that festival, we're having performance from across the continent. We want to make sure that we represent as much of the different regions as possible, as well as, artists. We'll also have poets, but we're also having actors come on board. And also we're speaking to actual medical experts. We're speaking to representatives of the African Union. We're also having DJs that are going to come on to party with us, and a few hosts from around the world that are going to come together. And all these are Africans who have lent their voices to actually help out. So at the moment, our website is infoafrica.org, and we also have our Instagram and Facebook page, which is Get In For Africa. And actually today, we've launched a challenge for any dancers. So I don't know if any of you guys like to shake your leg or two. When it comes
we all do.
So we've launched a campaign with TikTok, which is part of the Afro Dance campaign that they're launching for Africa Day. And so we're launching that Info Africa, hashtag Info Africa with Afro Dance with TikTok, which basically encourages all influencers to come on and show as many different African dances that you know. After this conversation, that's exactly what I'm about to go and do. And as a Congolese, we have more than 100. So I'm going to throw that in there as well. So, but the idea really is, we're saying that you don't have to be a celebrity to be an influencer. You could be anybody as long as you're able to provide information and to disseminate the idea of fake news and provide the right information. And this campaign is supposed to outlive COVID. It's supposed to be now as a method that we apply to any situation, whether we're dealing with situation of education, women's rights, all types of situations that's affecting the continent. We can apply this method, and the longer we make it, the bigger it will become.
Yeah, absolutely. And you have quite some noted personalities on board, I see.
Yes. Yeah, we've got some good people, and they're coming on board even more. So, of course, Afro B has lent his hand. Our very special Congolese brother Enos B is involved. Jibril Cisse, French international footballer. DJ Spinal, Jocelyn Duma, John Dumelo. The list goes on and on, man. Some amazing, actors from the continent, some amazing sportsmen, Yannick Bolassi, and of course, and even more entertainers are coming on board as well. So it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. And
What's
I love
the
that
website
this one
again?
is from the heart. It's infoafrica.org, right?
Yeah, infoafrica.org.
Yeah. I love that this is from the heart. This is totally random before we close off. I found a documentary that tracked back on how a particular campaign that was quote unquote for Africa some years ago. Do you remember Coney?
Yeah. Yes.
You remember
yes,
that one? And finding out what happened after that, the answer just was nothing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it just made me realize that most of the time, the campaign drivers, the movement people and stuff who are not connected, with the people involved, such as we Africans are, it just doesn't last. It's not making any impact. And
big point.
It's very disappointing. So I am actually, on board to share this, all over with our Amsterdam people listening all over the world. And I'm sure more are going to hear from it tomorrow. We are the premier group that are the first one to hear about this. So really,
fantastic. Yes.
Thank you for sharing this. How can people be involved, get on board? Is it simply through follow? Is it through the challenge? Is it through subscribing? How does that work?
Every single thing you've listed, like, we've all got our different talents, our different gifts, our different ways of contributing. So I'm glad you mentioned, in terms of the documentary that you watched, one thing that's really important, that you have to have like-minded people get involved. If you have like-minded people and you look at this as a long-term project, we're not talking about something that we just want to do to tick the box. We are talking about something, like I mentioned, that needs to outlive the COVID. We need to start doing things for ourselves and continue to apply it and pass it on to the next generation, and really start the culture of continuing till the end until we start seeing results. And it's not easy. It's not easy to put people together. It's not easy for people to understand what is going on. But if it becomes culture, eventually people will latch on. So in order to get involved, first of all, I would say we #InfoAfrica is the hashtag we're going with, and you can just record a video, literally post on your Instagram to say I'm in for Africa. Send a special message for those people back home. Tag us as well at Get In for Africa on our Instagram pages, and also you can literally go on our DMs and send us messages on my Comedy Kadi's DM. Send us messages on whatever way you want to get involved. Another thing we're doing is we're collecting videos and informations and narratives of what people are doing around the world for Africa and COVID-19, whether you're making masks or you're fundraising, whether, like Justin Duma and her foundation was going to drop off food and essentials for the kids, because her foundation focuses on children, all those, and John Dumelo being a farmer and also helping his community. These are all the examples that we're looking for. So if you have examples like that, please do reach out to us and send us these information. We want to be able to display this on the day. We want to be able to display it throughout the next 10 days as part of the campaign as well.
Yeah. So basically it's a collective, it's an alliance. So it's connecting with all the other that people are doing.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It's an alliance, and there's so many people in the background, like this is, I'm just one of the faces, but they literally, we have Kenyans, Liberians, Nigerians, Senegalese, Congolese people, we have Caribbeans. Everybody's literally joined together, and they're all specialists from corporate world, communication leaders, PR gurus, social media specialists, literally event curators. One of our actual, one of the people who's involved in Brenda, she curates the South by Southwest African Stage Festival. So, this is someone who's really a specialist in what she does. So there's so many other people in another one of our team members, Amma, who is she's Ghanaian, of course. She was raised in Namibia and Zambia, and she wrote the concept of applying the festival idea to execute the campaign. right? So she's amazing, and there's so many other people in this project. So this is something that is for Africans, by Africans, and we're really trying to push it forward.
Yeah, I love that. In the meantime, shout out to Eben, who says, "Nice one, bro."
My brother Eben.
I'm in there too. Shout out to Eben for even making this.
And Eben did what he was supposed to do as an influencer and connected us. That's all we ask, sometimes in this world. You don't have to do, you don't have to, move mountains, but, you'll push and everybody else starts to move the mountains. So thank you, Eben. God bless.
Yeah. And shout out to AG Green, who is looking to contact you or any of your team. How does that work? Yep. Somebody that wants to contact to get on board?
Yeah, so you can literally email iam@infoafrica.org. iam@infoafrica.org. Mm-hmm. Or you can literally email me, right? You can email me at eddie@eddiekadi.com. That will come straight to me. Like for everybody that say, if you have, just send me the email. If you send me an email that's irrelevant, you're not going to get a response. So that's not a problem. I'm happy to give my email address out. Right. eddie@eddiekadi.com. Literally, if you have some contribution, if not even on my DMs on Instagram, Comedy Kadi, you can reach me on there. Our DM at Getting for Africa. There is no excuse. There's so many ways you can reach us. You can even leave a comment on our page as well. So there's so many ways to reach.
At least that's what we could do.
Of course.
Absolutely. Before we round it up, Eddie, we've talked on so much, your growth, your journey as an all-round entertainer, as an African, making change, having a story. Also, in for Africa that is ready for launch tomorrow. What is the last words that you want to give to a young African living in New York, London, Amsterdam, and that really is simply asking, I might necessarily don't want to return or something, but what can I do, for the continent? Where does it start?
Be comfortable with who you are, first of all. That's the very first thing. Look around you. Look at the people who brought you up. Look at the food that you've eaten. Look at the music that you've danced to. Look at the person that you are. Right? Because our biggest influences have been our parents, our aunties, our uncles, our older siblings, church, weddings. Some people may have had a negative influence. But one thing that is for sure is that you can never be a great version of somebody else. You will always be an amazing version of yourself. You don't want to be a diluted version of anything on this earth. Okay, so my thing is you don't have to go back home. But one thing is for sure is apply the person you are right now and start speaking on the things that matter to you. Represent who you are. Don't feel afraid just because people don't want to get involved in the conversation. You have a role to represent the person you are, and never ever be afraid. There's nothing wrong with you not going back home. Nobody's going to hold you accountable to that. But home is where you are. I mean, I grew up in the UK. I spent 18 years before I went back to Africa. But home, Congo, was in my parents' house. Congo was in the church I went to. Congo was in the music I was listening to. So I was already in Congo all that time. So accept the person you are and understand that you are more than enough. You are more than enough because the people that came before you and the people that come after you and the people that are around you now are contributing to the movement of this world more than you can ever imagine. So you are enough. You are a king. You are a queen. And I love you, man. Every single person watching right now, I see you as my sibling, man. Let's move forward together.
Yeah. On that note, thank you so much, Eddie Kadi.
Thank you.
We could have gone on and in detail about, our leaders.
There'll be another time.
How we can translate our role as leaders, but
I'll come back again.
Yeah, we should. This was absolute a joy to talk to you about everything that is necessary at this time. And we know where to find you, so we're going to climb upon any social media platform and press that follow button. In for Africa is also part of spreading the word and all of that. Again, thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. I really appreciate the both of you. Thank you for making time.
Thank you.
All the best with the launch this week.
Take care.
Okay.
Bye-bye. Cheers.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
All right. Well, we just had a very good, powerful, solid conversation with Eddie Kadi, coming live to us from London to talk about Pan-Africanism in the eyes of us young people. And also shout out to Noreen, Charlene Pinas Olatunde for interacting with us and even showing some heart, some love. Wherever you are, let us know where you're tuning in from. I always love, seeing new listeners tuning in to Africa on Focus. And by the way, this is a lockdown special. on this particular lockdown special, I'm tuning in from home, but the studio is gonna reopen soon. We're getting things going, and we will be meeting up for all new things. Donnie, what's on your mind?
What's on my mind? I just took a note of the last thing he said. Get comfortable with yourself and promote that because you are more than enough. I think
Yeah,
that's a powerful
yeah.
statement. So
It is, and a lot of very powerful, especially for. I've noticed that Africans all around the world, we do so much to kind of be accepted, fully
right,
within environments and systems that we grew up in, but are not necessarily
yeah,
created for us, and we know what that
yeah, yeah,
means.
yeah, yeah. I know
And
what it means.
yeah, and and it doesn't really motivate people to really develop themselves. There was even
Yeah.
one thing that I really found interesting, and it was this couple that returned to Ghana, and she spoke about her daughter. The difference of the attitude of her daughter when she went to school, and she said, in Europe, in a particular European country, the daughter was kind of feeling insecure. Should I straighten my hair? To be more liked,
Mm,
by everybody. And the daughter had more of a shy attitude. And as they
mm,
returned and were living there for quite some time, you could see that she was confident. She was like glowing. She was really herself, and she didn't feel like she
yeah,
had to
yeah, yeah.
change herself to match up to anybody's expectation. So
Right,
it stood out to me. It might not be everybody's experience, but it does make me realize that it's not necessarily everybody that finds that environment where they could really
true.
be as they are. Yeah, I think we should have a session on that. We should find some confidence or mental health mentor or something to be talking to us about that, especially as it relates to Black people. I think.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Anything major this week?
No, I have this deadline for a paper I have to write.
Okay. Let's
Which,
wrap it
yeah.
up then, Donnie. It's time to wrap it up.
Oh,
Well, to all of you who tuned in, so much love, all to you, and of course, don't forget to share this conversation. We would really like for it to
yeah.
spread, and for people to really listen to this conversation, not just know about the campaign, but really know about the story behind it. And this will also be available on the podcast soon, which you can listen to. And of course, this recap on the show. We'll be back next week with an interesting special guest. We will be talking about, again, a diaspora focused topic or African focused topic, which also relates to how can the young diaspora, be a part and really help our continent develop, whether that be small or whether that be great. You and I are the influencers. You and I are the change, the people that can bring
Yeah.
about that change. So I think on that note, we would just leave you and myself as well, so that Donnie could complete his paper.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks so
All
much,
right.
guys, and make sure that you follow High Radio on www.highradionl.com. And also, if you haven't liked our Facebook page, make sure that you do that. Spread the word, spread the knowledge, and let's continue to share our success stories. I am Miss Abba, your host, alongside my co-host Donnie. Thanks so much, Donnie, for
Mm-hmm.
being on board with me again. And shout out to Noreen, who's saying
Thank you
much
for
love
having
to all of you. I really enjoyed this interesting, beautiful conversations. Have a good
me. You're
week,
welcome.
and we'll be catching
All right.
you next week. Okay, bye
So
bye.
long. So long. Bye.